Hello everyone, let's watch a quick match from the 2022 FTX Crypto Cup between Hans Niemann on the white end and Magnus Carlsen. We're gonna have the minor peace and balance soon after this opening of the Sicilian defense and variation Rosalimo attack, and black will be working with an unopposed light square bishop whose strength is only increased because of the white's choice on move 16. This is the game in which Niemann later famously remarked that the chess speaks for itself. In my opinion, it's a model game. At that point, white created a long-term static weakness upon moving backward in position on d3, and black was able to fully capitalize on what weakness to put white on the defensive. So these are g6 castles. This man is prepared to roll 94. What to do in this game to protect c5, b6, which is played with the understanding that in this game I could have to go uncastled. White gained the piece back, and that's not just any piece. It's your most crucial minor piece. It's your friend cattled if you're capturing the knight like this. Knight f6 hits king f8, which is almost poison if you're doing so. Bishop black cannot afford to play in this manner, so he must go uncancelled. The knight now retreats, and if you wanted to castle, you would have to make a different ninth move, 96 for example, which would simply be a mistake because pawn takes knight, pawn takes pawn is no longer a discovered check. There's a coordination issue if the knight moves to e6 right now in this game, as it is b6, knight f6, king f8, knight e4 to Tempe have been invested for black to go uncastled. The problem with having the knight on e6 is that this bishop is starting at the back of the knight, which is not the best move in the world. This guy would prefer to be out, and about b4, the knight is on e6. White made these two moves without casting the black king. Therefore, before black can manually castle, he must invest 3 Tempe. G8 king h7, h6 king. Now that black has developed the bishop, I would ordinarily state that it also pins the knight, but in this game we have d3, and black responds with 96. A slight modification to this variation, such as the king going right to the chop here, could result in a checkmate. Normally, the black knight would be in this position, but what a lovely finish this one would be if your king and rook were completely constrained. Okay, I get it. To force double to f-pounds, the knight g5 knight traded black pinpoints on the light square in this game, which is not a free pawn. Rook e4 slower movement prevents the f-pounds from being doubled. You will notice that picking up this pawn does give white a lot of activity. The major pieces primarily spring to life along this e-line, and in this more open position black may find it much more difficult to get those few temp pieces. The bishop is hit now in this position. In the Lee Chess Masters database, there is a game from 2019 between the Nils Grandelius and Nihal Sarin, in which white captured the knight and captured the pawn in this position. Carlson chooses c4, so I want to respond some time at this point right here, first of all asking why c4 is played, rather than immediately responding to this threat and what might have been white's train of thought in this position. I believe c4 is played to prevent black from occasionally playing c4 himself, so for example, if white immediately responded to that threat, let's consider how we might play as black. In this position, how might play have continued if the queen had fallen back to d7? How might white have successfully played d4 rook e2? This guy would be poisoned. If you take with a bishop, you are in a pin. You could defend it temporarily, but you could always put a third attacker on it. This is winning for white. Also taking with a queen is winning for white. g6 is going to open up soon. Every possible black piece that could be directed at d3 is going to be directed at d. To move the king into safety, let's assume black plays the rook to d8 in this position. White may then follow by first playing the h3, which would eliminate the bishop to g4 ideas. If king g8 rook d2 is present, let's say king h7 is in a position where white can eliminate this partially dead pawn, eliminating a static weakness. I believe that the d4 break in this position was intended to prevent the black from playing the c4, and he had an eye on eventually playing the d4 himself. However, the d4 never comes in this game. Instead, it is queen e6, rook e3, h6, and g5. White is playing on the queen side in search of a break when he gets that in with the move b4. From here, the simple plain target d3 pawn h3 square has opened up for the queen. Black's king is casting long by hand. What should black do in response? If white takes, you undouble the pawns, but you give this rook some play. Black says, I don't mind taking on the double isolated pawns, but I prefer not to give your rook a chance. There is a queen b3 battery there, and we now have to watch over the d3 pawn after it was hit 3 times. What are you doing? This is one of the white's last opportunities to perhaps alter things up a little bit here, so while it's not the most enjoyable move to play, what else can you try? White has this as a move exactly here in the bishop position, entering in the position color. The position exchanges slightly at e6 to introduce a bishop of the opposing color. Black is up the pawn. The choice is still in black. It's another route for white, which regarded as one of the stronger attempts at this point in the game is e6 in place of knight to e1 91, but now comes h5. The knight immediately returns to f3, maintaining pressure on g5. As running in for the capture on d3 right now would not be a good idea for black in the game h4 is played. This queen is overloaded because she must watch over g5 and d3. And if black captures d3 right now, white would be let off the hook. Knight can take g5, then white can capture here even if the game is still going on with h4 and in this location slowly. Bishop h2 and now e6 are the only weak locations in this game because all of the other points are well defended. Bishop, anytime, you can break down enemy pawns that are on the same color square as you unopposed bishop. It's usually good news for that piece, more diagonals and more squares open up for that piece, so not a good continuation to go hunting for pawns, tough road ahead. g4 must be played right away because if you make one careless move, like moving the bishop to e7, you will see that there is no longer any pressure on h4 and that this wouldn't be achieving anything. However, if black were to play in this manner, you would not be able to enter g4 because white could play f3 and there would be a clamp over this pawn break. From here, the pawn grabs bishop, who moves to f3. Bishop retreats, and f4, which now serves as an active square and eliminates the need to move to e7. From here, f4 is in the crosshairs. Queen g4, queen a5, rook f3, there are 2 pins now. This rook is pinned and this pawn is pinned, and Blake can take advantage of that with his next move, which is shortened up by the unopposed bishop. Look at the coordination or lack thereof coordination for black. Perfectly coordinated bishop and h2 knight on his back foot rooks disconnected, both unprotected big problems in the game. As soon as black picks up a double pawn and loses the exchange, the game is practically finished. Black also keeps attacking these light squares while taking advantage of the pin g-pawn. There are many ways to convert this one from the queen f2, because the d-pawn and the a-pawn are gone. We have a pacer, and black is up the exchange, rook e3. King f2, then one more move. Taking f4, bishop wins and Carlson resigns. If the game had continued, what outcome may we have had? Bishop captures, bishop recapture, and if the king moves here, you lose the knight. However, even if you move here to rescue the knight, it won't be saved because black might take the knight, and my pawn could move the rook, which would send the queen flying. Bishop moves the pawn in the final move of this rapid game. If we take a quick look at the tail of the top, we can see that Magnus Carlsen played a very high level, with 91 accuracies for Carlson, 97 accuracies for Niemann, and that these errors that the computer is pointing out for the Carlson don't help us out that much because black is already pretty much winning at that point. The response from the queen e6 to the c4 move was particularly intriguing because she could finally direct every piece she could at the weak end with the d3 pawn anyhow. Do you like it? Kindly give your valuable response in the comment section below, And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting and informative videos.